The mop slapped against the marble floor one final time, and Marcus stepped back to admire his work. The entrance hall of First Light Community Church gleamed under the recessed lighting, every surface reflecting his 4 hours of meticulous labor. He was reaching for his cleaning cart when he saw the shadow fall across his perfect floor. A man stood at the glass doors, palm pressed against the surface Marcus had just polished. The handprint left a dark smudge, and Marcus's jaw tightened. But it wasn't the mark that made him move quickly toward the entrance. It was the man himself. He wore what might have once been a white robe, now stained with mud and something darker, his bare feet caked in filth, his matted hair hanging past his shoulders. The smell hit Marcus even through the glass. "Sir, you can't come in here," Marcus said, pushing through the door and positioning himself as a barrier. "We just cleaned." The man's eyes met his, an unusual grey-blue that held a peculiar sadness. "Is it clean?" the stranger asked quietly. "The church, is it really clean?" Before Marcus could answer, Pastor William emerged from the sanctuary, his expression shifting from curiosity to distaste. "Marcus is right. We have standards. This is God's house." But then Sarah, the church janitor who'd been scrubbing these floors for 20 years, dropped her bucket. Water splashed across the tiles Marcus had just dried. "Wait!" Her voice cracked, her weathered hands trembling as she stared at something in the stranger's face that no one else seemed to see. "Please wait. Don't turn him away." Before we continue, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. If this story convicted your heart, type Amen below. Marcus believed he was simply protecting the sanctity of First Light Community Church when he blocked that filthy stranger at the door, without knowing that this single decision would unravel everything he thought. He knew about faith and expose a truth so devastating it would bring the entire congregation to its knees. What happens next will shatter every comfortable belief you've built about worship and holiness, and will reveal a divine presence that's been waiting in the last place anyone thought to look. A story that will force you to choose between the appearance of righteousness and the reality of grace, and will leave you forever changed. Marcus had always believed in order. In his 42 years, chaos had taken too much from him, so he'd built his life around control, structure, predictability. His mother used to say cleanliness was next to godliness, back when she still had the strength to say anything, back before the cancer turned her body into something unrecognizable. He'd been 17, watching her waste away in that hospital bed, and the only thing he could control was keeping her space clean, her sheets smooth, her water glass full, the surfaces wiped down. When she finally died on a Tuesday morning that smelled like antiseptic and failure, Marcus had walked into First Light Community Church and found the same comfort in its pristine aisles, its organized hymn books, its perfect Sunday morning routine. 25 years later, he was head of security and facilities, the guardian of order in a place that had transformed from a modest building into a glass and steel cathedral with LED lights that shifted colors during worship. Songs and a coffee bar that served lattes with foam art. Pastor William Chen had built this empire through streaming sermons and motivational speaking tours, and Marcus had been there for most of it, ensuring everything ran smoothly, making certain nothing disrupted the carefully orchestrated experience of modern worship. Saturday afternoon cleaning was sacred ritual. The service team arrived at 2, and for 4 hours they'd transformed the building from the week's wear into Sunday's perfection. Marcus supervised every detail, from the alignment of chairs to the shine on the door handles. He'd developed a system, a checklist that ensured nothing was overlooked, no surface left unmarked by his standards. Today had been particularly satisfying. The marble entrance hall gleamed like glass, the LED lights had been dusted, even the rubber welcome mats had been pressure washed and repositioned at exact intervals. He'd just finished his final pass with the microfiber mop when the shadow appeared. Marcus looked up and his chest constricted. Through the glass doors, a figure stood motionless, one palm pressed against the surface. The handprint left a smudge of something dark, possibly mud, possibly worse. But it wasn't the mark that sent Marcus moving quickly toward the entrance. The man wore a robe. Not the clean, pressed vestments Pastor William wore during services, but something that looked like it had been pulled from a dumpster. The fabric might have been white once, but now it was covered in stains, dark splotches from shoulder to hem, tears in the sleeves, the bottom caked with what looked like dried mud or sewage. His hair hung in matted tangles past his shoulders, and his beard was unkempt, filled with bits of debris. His feet were bare, caked in filth up to the ankles. Marcus pushed through the door, and the smell hit him like a physical wall. Sweat, yes, but also decay, sickness, the unmistakable odor of someone who'd been living on the streets for far too long. "Sir?" Marcus kept his voice firm but controlled, the way he'd learned in the customer service training Pastor William mandated for all staff. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step back from the building." The man's eyes met his. They were an unusual shade, somewhere between gray and blue, and they held something Marcus couldn't quite name. Not aggression, not confusion. Something else. Something that made him momentarily uncomfortable. But the man didn't speak, didn't move, just continued to stand there with his hand on the glass, leaving that dark smudge on Marcus's perfect surface. "We have services tomorrow morning," Marcus continued, softening his voice slightly. "We can connect you with the outreach center downtown. They have showers, clean clothes, hot meals, but right now, this building is closed for cleaning. I'm sure you understand." The man tilted his head slightly, and for the first time, he spoke. His voice was quiet, rough, as if from disuse, but surprisingly clear. "Is it clean?" Marcus blinked. "Excuse me?" "The church." The man gestured with his free hand toward the building behind Marcus. "You said you just cleaned. Is it really clean?" Something in the question unsettled Marcus in a way he couldn't articulate. Yes, it's clean. That's exactly why I can't let you inside right now. We have over 3,000 people coming through those doors tomorrow morning, and everything needs to be ready. 3,000! The man repeated the number as if testing its weight. And if one of those 3,000 had mud on their shoes, what would you do? Marcus felt his patience beginning to thin. He'd dealt with homeless people before, knew the patterns of conversation that spiraled nowhere, the philosophical tangents designed to delay the inevitable. "Sir, I'm asking you respectfully to please step away from the building. If you need assistance, I can give you the address." "Marcus." Sarah's voice came from behind him, and he turned to see her standing in the doorway, her cleaning apron still damp, her grey hair escaping from its usual tight bun. Her face had gone pale, and her hands were shaking. "Marcus, let him in." Marcus stared at her. "Sarah, you know I can't do that. Look at him. Look at the floor. We've been working all afternoon." "I don't care about the floor." Sarah's voice rose, and Marcus was shocked to see tears forming in her eyes. She'd worked at First Light longer than anyone, had been there when it was just a converted warehouse with folding chairs and a borrowed sound system. In all those years, he'd never heard her contradict anyone, never seen her challenge a decision. "Let him in, please. What's happening here?" Pastor William's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. He emerged from the sanctuary, flanked by David Torres and Michael Bradford, two of the elders who'd stayed late to review the budget proposal for the new youth wing. All three wore expensive casual clothing, the kind that looked relaxed but cost more than Marcus made in a week. Marcus felt relief wash through him at the pastor's arrival. "Just a situation at the door, Pastor. I'm handling it." Pastor William approached, his expression shifting from curiosity to visible distaste as he registered the stranger. His nose wrinkled slightly, a micro-expression he quickly controlled. But Marcus saw it. Everyone saw it. "Sir," This is private property. William's voice was measured, the same tone he used when discussing controversial topics from the pulpit, the voice that said, "I'm being reasonable, you're being difficult. We have rules about building access. If you're seeking assistance, our church partners with several excellent organizations that can help. Marcus can provide you with information." The man in the white robe shifted his gaze to William, and something passed between them, some silent communication that made the pastor take a small step backward. "You have a beautiful building," the stranger said. "Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, sound system that probably cost more than most people make in a year." He paused. "Is this what they mean by storing up treasures in heaven?" David Torres moved forward, his hand out in a placating gesture. David ran a successful real estate firm and had donated generously to the building fund. His name was on a plaque in the lobby. "Brother, no one's judging you. We're simply trying to maintain a space that serves our community. Surely you can appreciate that. Cleanliness, order, these things matter. They show respect for the sacred." "The sacred," the stranger repeated the word slowly, as if tasting it. "And what makes this building sacred? The marble? The lights? The fact that you spent 4 hours making it spotless?" He looked directly at Marcus. "You didn't answer my question. Is it clean, really clean?" Marcus felt heat rising to his face. "I don't know what kind of point you're trying to make, but yes, this church is clean. I personally ensure it every single week. Now, I've been patient, but you need to leave. Now." "Marcus, don't." Sarah had moved closer, and now she stood beside the stranger, her small frame dwarfed by his height. She looked at William with something like desperation in her eyes. "Pastor, please, don't do this. Don't turn him away." William's expression hardened. "Sarah, go back inside. This doesn't concern you." "It concerns all of us." Sarah's voice broke. "I've been cleaning this building for 20 years. 20 years and I've never asked for anything. I'm asking now. Let him in. Let him speak. He's not here to speak, Sarah." Michael Bradford crossed his arms. Michael owned 3 car dealerships and had a reputation for straight talk. "He's here to disrupt, to make us uncomfortable, to make some kind of statement about inequality or hypocrisy or whatever the cause of the day is. We've seen it before. We let him in, he makes a scene during service tomorrow, and then we're dealing with that mess instead of focusing on ministry." The stranger smiled, and it was the saddest expression Marcus had ever seen. "Ministry. Yes. Tell me, when was the last time any of you touched someone like me? Fed someone like me? Sat with someone like me and asked their name?" William's face flushed. "We run a food bank. We donate to shelters. We sponsor mission trips. Don't you dare suggest—" "I'm not suggesting anything." The stranger's voice remained quiet. "I'm asking a question. When you write those checks, when you organize those trips, do you see the faces? Do you know the names? Or is it just another line item in the budget, another program to make the church look good, another tax deduction to offset the cost of those crystal chandeliers?" "That's enough." William's voice went cold. "Marcus, call the police if he doesn't leave voluntarily. I won't have this building or this congregation disrespected." Marcus pulled out his phone, but his hands were shaking. Something about this felt wrong. Deeply wrong, but he couldn't articulate why. The man was trespassing. The man was being disruptive. The man was exactly the kind of problem Marcus was paid to handle. "Wait." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the tension like a blade. She was staring at the stranger's hands, at the palms that were calloused and scarred, at the wrists where the dirty robe had fallen back to reveal marks that looked like old wounds. "Wait, please, look at him, really look at him." "I'm looking at a homeless man who's refusing to leave," William said. "Sarah, I understand you have a compassionate heart, but there are proper channels for this. We can't just—" "You're not looking." Sarah's voice grew stronger. You're seeing dirt and smelling sweat and making judgments, but you're not looking. None of you are looking." Marcus forced himself to meet the stranger's eyes again, those grey-blue eyes that held such profound sadness. And for just a moment, he saw something else there, something that made his breath catch in his throat. "My name is Marcus," he heard himself say, though he hadn't intended to speak. "What's yours?" The stranger's expression softened. "Does it matter? You've already decided who I am, what I am, whether I deserve to stand in your clean building." "That's not fair," Marcus said, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew they were a lie. "Isn't it?" The stranger gestured to the building behind them. "You've spent all day making this place spotless, scrubbing every surface, polishing every fixture, making it perfect for tomorrow's crowd. But tell me, Marcus, if I walked in there right now, if I sat in one of those cushioned chairs with my dirty robe and my muddy feet, what would you do?" Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. He knew exactly what he would do. He'd ask the man to leave. He'd offer alternatives. He'd protect the space he'd worked so hard to perfect. "That's what I thought," the stranger said quietly. "This is ridiculous." Michael Bradford stepped forward. "We're standing here debating philosophy with a vagrant while we have work to do. Pastor, with all respect, make a decision. Either we remove him, or we're setting a precedent that anyone can show up here and demand entry." William nodded slowly. "You're right. Marcus, make the call." But Marcus couldn't move. His finger hovered over the phone screen, but something held him paralyzed. He looked at Sarah, saw the tears now streaming down her weathered face, saw the way she was looking at the stranger as if he were the most important person in the world. "Please," Sarah whispered, "please don't do this. You don't understand what you're doing." "We understand perfectly," David said, his voice gentler than the others but no less firm. "We're protecting this church. We're maintaining standards. We're being responsible stewards of what God has given us." "God!" The stranger spoke the word with such weight that everyone fell silent. "Yes, let's talk about God. Let's talk about what He values, what He considers clean, what He considers sacred." He took a step forward, and Marcus instinctively moved to block him, but the stranger stopped just short of the entrance. "You see dirt on my robe and filth on my feet, and you call that unclean. But I see hearts that have forgotten how to love. I see hands that write checks but never touch the broken. I see mouths that sing worship songs but speak judgment. I see eyes that look at marble floors but refuse to see the people bleeding on them." His voice remained quiet, but it carried a power that made Marcus's skin prickle. "So I ask you again, is this church really clean?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat, could feel sweat forming on his palms despite the cool evening air. He looked at Pastor William and saw something he'd never seen before: uncertainty, fear even. "Who are you?" William asked, and his voice had lost its authority. The stranger didn't answer. Instead, he turned to Sarah. "You see, don't you? You've always seen." Sarah nodded, unable to speak through her tears. "Then tell them," the stranger said gently. "Tell them what you see." Sarah's hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together. She looked at Marcus, then at William, then at the elders. "I see someone we're supposed to recognize, someone we sing about every Sunday, someone we claim to follow but don't actually want in our building because he doesn't fit our image of what holy should look like." "Sarah, that's blasphemous," Michael said sharply. "You're suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything." Sarah's voice was steady now, despite the tears. "I'm telling you what I see, and I'm telling you that if we turn him away, if we choose our clean floors over his presence, we're making a choice we'll regret for the rest of our lives." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. He looked at the stranger again, really looked this time, and saw past the dirt and the smell and the stained robe. He saw the scars on the wrists. He saw the profound sadness in those eyes. He saw the way the man stood there, not demanding entry, not forcing his way in, just waiting, just offering them a choice. "I can't," Marcus whispered. "I can't call the police. I can't turn him away." "Then you're fired." William's voice was flat, effective immediately. "I can't have someone on my staff who won't follow direct orders." Marcus looked at the pastor, at this man he'd served for over 2 decades, and saw a stranger. "Your staff? Your orders? I thought this was God's house." "Don't twist my words. You know what I meant." "Do I?" Marcus pocketed his phone. "Because right now, I'm not sure I know anything anymore." He turned to the stranger. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know who you are, but Sarah's right. We shouldn't be turning you away. We shouldn't be choosing flaws over people. I was wrong." The stranger's expression softened, and he reached out to touch Marcus's shoulder. The hand was warm despite the cool evening, and Marcus felt something pass through him at the contact, something he couldn't name, but that felt like forgiveness and sorrow and love all mixed together. "You're learning," the stranger said quietly. "That's all anyone can ask. This is insane." David shook his head. "William, we need to end this. Now. Call the police yourself if Marcus won't." But William was staring at the stranger with an expression Marcus couldn't read. Fear, yes, but also something else, recognition maybe, or dread. "You can call them if you want," the stranger said. "You can have me removed. You can go back to your clean building and your perfect services and your comfortable faith. But you'll know. Deep down, you'll always know what you chose, and you'll have to live with that." "Are you threatening us?" Michael demanded. "No." The stranger's voice was infinitely sad. "I'm offering you a chance, a choice. The same choice that's been offered since the beginning. Love or law, compassion or comfort, people or property. You get to decide what matters more." William's phone was in his hand now, his finger hovering over the screen just as Marcus's had been moments before. The pastor's face was pale, his jaw clenched. "If I let you in, if I allow this, what happens tomorrow? What happens when word gets out that we let a homeless man into the building? What happens to our reputation, our donors, our growth? What happens to your soul?" the stranger countered. "That's the real question, isn't it? What happens to the part of you that once believed faith was about more than buildings and budgets? What happens to the part that once knew how to see people instead of problems?" William's hand was shaking now. Marcus watched the internal war play out on his pastor's face, watched him struggle between everything he'd built and everything he'd once believed. "I can't," William finally whispered. I can't risk it. I can't risk everything we've built. I'm sorry, but I can't." He pressed the call button. Sarah made a sound like something breaking. Marcus felt his own heart sink, and the stranger simply nodded, as if he'd expected nothing less. "Then I'll wait," the stranger said. "I'll wait right here outside your clean building, where everyone who comes tomorrow can see me, where they can see what you chose, where they can make their own choice about what that means." "You can't do that," David said. "That's loitering. That's exercising my right to exist in a public space." The stranger interrupted. "You can have me removed from your property, but the sidewalk belongs to everyone. So I'll wait. And we'll see what happens when your 3,000 people arrive tomorrow and find me here, still dirty, still unwelcome, still waiting." William's face went from pale to grey. "You're trying to sabotage us. You're trying to make us look bad." "I'm not trying to make you look like anything," the stranger said. "I'm simply revealing what's already there. The choice is still yours. It's always been yours. Let me in or send me away. Show compassion or protect your comfort. Be the church you claim to be, or be the institution you've become. But choose honestly. Choose knowing that whatever you decide, you'll have to face it every time you look in a mirror." The sound of sirens began in the distance, growing closer. Marcus felt sick. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. But he didn't know how to fix it, didn't know how to undo the choice that had already been made. Sarah walked over to the stranger and took his hand. "I'm sorry," she said through her tears. "I'm so sorry. I tried. I know you did." The stranger squeezed her hand gently. "And that matters more than you know. Your eyes still see. Your heart still feels. Don't let them take that from you." The police car pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing. 2 officers got out, and William walked over to meet them, his posture straightening, his voice regaining its authority as he explained the situation. Marcus watched it all as if from a great distance, watched the officers approach the stranger, watched them ask him to leave, watched him comply without resistance. But before he turned to go, the stranger looked back at Marcus one more time. "The question still stands," he said. "Is this church really clean? You might want to think about that before tomorrow's service. You might want to ask yourself what you're really worshipping in there." Then he was gone, walking down the sidewalk with the officers following at a distance to ensure he kept moving. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, tears still streaming down her face. William was thanking the officers, shaking their hands, maintaining the appearance of control. And Marcus stood there, staring at the handprint still visible on the glass door, that dark smudge on his perfect surface, and felt something fundamental shift inside him. What had they just done? What had he just done? The officers drove away. William returned to the building, his expression carefully neutral. "Well, that's handled. Let's get back to work. We still have preparations to finish for tomorrow." "Preparations," Marcus repeated numbly. "Yes, the service. We have 3,000 people coming. Everything needs to be perfect." William paused. "Marcus, about what I said earlier, about firing you, I was speaking in the heat of the moment. I understand you were conflicted. Let's just forget it happened and move forward." But Marcus couldn't move. He was still staring at that handprint on the glass. "Marcus," William's voice held a note of impatience. "Did you hear me? We just turned away someone who needed help," Marcus said quietly. "We chose a clean floor over a human being. We chose order over chaos." William corrected. "We chose responsibility over sentiment. We made the right decision for the church." "Did we?" Marcus finally looked at him. "Did we really?" William's expression hardened. "I'm not going to debate this with you. We did what needed to be done. Now, are you going to finish your job, or do I need to find someone who will?" Marcus looked at the mop, still lying on the floor where he'd dropped it. He looked at the cleaning cart with all his supplies organized exactly as he liked them. He looked at the marble floor that gleamed under the lights, at the spotless surfaces, at the perfect order he'd spent 4 hours creating. Then he looked at the handprint on the glass. "No," he said. "No what?" "No, I'm not going to finish. No. I don't think we made the right decision, and no, I can't keep doing this." William's face flushed. "Excuse me? I quit." The words came out before Marcus fully realized he was going to say them. "I quit. I can't be part of this anymore. I can't keep choosing buildings over people. I can't keep pretending that clean floors matter more than broken hearts." "You're being dramatic," David said. "You're letting emotion cloud your judgment. Sleep on it. You'll feel differently tomorrow." But Marcus knew he wouldn't. Something had broken open inside him, something that had been sealed shut for 25 years, and he couldn't close it again even if he wanted to. "I'm sorry," he said, and he wasn't sure if he was apologizing to them, or to the stranger, or to himself. "I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore." He walked past them, past the clean floors and the perfect order, past the crystal chandeliers and the expensive sound system, and out into the parking lot. The evening air was cool on his face, and he realized he was crying. He didn't know where the stranger had gone, didn't know if he'd ever see him again. But he knew he had to try. He had to find him. He had to apologize. He had. To understand what had just happened and what it meant. Marcus started walking in the direction the stranger had gone, leaving behind the church he'd served for over 2 decades, leaving behind the only sense of purpose he'd known since his mother died, leaving behind everything familiar and safe, and as he walked, he heard Sarah's voice calling after him. "Marcus, wait!" He turned to see her running toward him, her cleaning apron flapping, her grey hair wild around her face. She was still crying, but she was also smiling. "I'm coming with you," she said breathlessly. "I'm coming with you. We'll find him together." Marcus felt something warm bloom in his chest. He wasn't alone. Whatever happened next, he wasn't alone. They walked together through the darkening streets, 2 people who'd spent their lives maintaining order and cleanliness, now searching for a man who'd shown them that some things matter more than spotless floors. What Marcus didn't know was that their search would lead them to places they'd never imagined, would force them to confront truths they'd spent decades avoiding, and would ultimately reveal that the question the stranger had asked wasn't rhetorical at all. Is this church really clean? The answer, they would discover, was far more complicated and far more devastating than either of them could have guessed. They found him 3 blocks away, sitting on a bench outside a closed convenience store. He wasn't alone. A woman sat beside him, her clothes nearly as dirty as his, her face gaunt and tired. He was sharing something with her, breaking what looked like a piece of bread, offering her half. Marcus and Sarah approached slowly, uncertain. The stranger looked up and smiled, that same sad smile that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "You came," he said simply. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, the words tumbling out. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I don't know who you are, but I know I failed you. I know I chose the wrong thing, and I'm sorry." The stranger stood, leaving the woman with the bread. He walked over to Marcus and placed both hands on his shoulders. Up close, Marcus could see the scars more clearly, could see the lines of suffering etched into his face, could see the depth of compassion in those grey-blue eyes. "You're learning," the stranger said again. "That's what matters. You're learning to see." "See what?" Marcus asked desperately. "What? Am I supposed to see? That clean buildings don't make clean hearts, that order without love is just control, that you can scrub every surface until it shines and still be filthy where it matters most." The stranger's grip tightened slightly. "You spent 25 years trying to create order because you couldn't control your mother's death. You thought if you could just keep everything clean enough, perfect enough, organized enough, you could prevent more loss, more chaos, more pain. But life doesn't work that way. Faith doesn't work that way. Love doesn't work that way." Marcus felt like he'd been struck. "How did you—" "Because I see you, Marcus. Really see you. Not the job you do, or the role you play, or the image you maintain. I see the scared 17-year-old boy who watched his mother die and decided that control was the only way to survive. I see the man who's been hiding behind mops and checklists for decades because he's terrified of feeling that helpless again. I see the heart that's been locked away for so long you forgot it was there." Tears were streaming down Marcus's face now. "I don't know how to be anything else. I don't know how to live without the order, without the control." "Yes, you do." The stranger's voice was gentle. "You proved it tonight. You made a choice. You walked away from everything familiar because you knew it was wrong. That took more courage than 25 years of perfect floors ever did." Sarah was crying too, standing beside Marcus, her hand on his arm. "What do we do now?" she asked. "Where do we go from here?" The stranger looked at both of them. "You go back." "Back?" Marcus felt panic rise in his chest. "Back to the church? After everything that just happened?" "Yes. Back to the church, because tomorrow morning 3,000 people are going to walk through those doors expecting to find God. And most of them are going to be just like you were an hour ago. Comfortable, controlled, convinced that faith is about clean buildings and perfect services and maintaining appearances. Someone needs to show them something different. Someone needs to help them see. "But William fired me," Marcus said. "Or I quit. I'm not even sure which. Either way, I can't go back." "Can't you?" The stranger's eyes held a challenge. "Or are you just afraid? Afraid of what it will cost to stand up for what's right? Afraid of losing what little security you have left? Afraid of being uncomfortable?" Marcus wanted to argue, but he couldn't, because the stranger was right. He was afraid, terrified actually. "What would you have me do?" he asked quietly. "Tell the truth." The stranger released his shoulders and stepped back. "Tomorrow, when those 3,000 people arrive, tell them what happened tonight. Tell them about the choice that was made. Tell them about the man who was turned away from God's house because he didn't look right, didn't smell right, didn't fit the image. Tell them about the question I asked, and then let them decide what kind of church they want to be." "They'll destroy me," Marcus said. "William will destroy me. The elders will destroy me. I'll lose everything." "Yes," the stranger agreed. "You probably will, but you'll gain something far more valuable. You'll gain your soul back. You'll gain the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. You'll gain the freedom that comes from choosing truth over comfort." Sarah squeezed Marcus's arm. "I'll stand with you. Whatever happens, I'll stand with you." Marcus looked at her, at this woman who'd spent 20 years scrubbing floors without complaint, who'd seen what no one else had seen, who'd tried to stop them from making a terrible mistake. "Why?" he asked. "Why are you willing to risk everything?" "Because I'm tired," Sarah said simply. "I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of watching us become something we were never supposed to be. I'm tired of choosing comfort over conviction. And because 20 years ago, when my husband left me and I had nowhere to go, this church took me in. Not the building, not the programs, the people. Real people with real compassion who saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. That church still exists somewhere under all the marble and LED lights. Maybe it's time we fought to bring it back." The stranger smiled. "And this time, it wasn't sad, it was proud. You both have more courage than you know. Use it. Tomorrow, use it. Show them what faith looks like when it's not afraid to get dirty." "Will you be there?" Marcus asked. "Tomorrow, will you come back?" "I'm always there," the stranger said. "The question is whether anyone's looking, whether anyone's willing to see past the surfaces to what's really present. That's what tomorrow is about. That's what every day is about, learning to see." He turned back to the woman on the bench who'd been watching the exchange with quiet curiosity. "I need to finish helping my friend here. She hasn't eaten in 2 days, and she has a long night ahead of her. But you two should go home. Rest, pray, prepare. Tomorrow is going to be difficult. You'll need your strength." Marcus wanted to say more, wanted to ask 1,000 questions, wanted to understand who this man really was and why he'd chosen tonight to appear at their church. But something in the stranger's expression told him the time for questions was over. The time for action was beginning. "Thank you," Marcus said, "for whatever this was, for whatever you've shown us." "Thank you," the stranger nodded. "Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you've followed through, when you've stood up in front of 3,000 people and told them the truth, when you've chosen love over fear. That's when gratitude means something." Marcus and Sarah walked away together, leaving the stranger with the hungry woman, leaving behind the bench and the closed convenience store and the darkening street. They walked in silence for several blocks, both processing what had just happened, both trying to understand what it meant and what came next. Finally, Sarah spoke. "Do you really think he was—" "I don't know," Marcus interrupted. "I don't know who he was or what he was, but I know he was right. about everything, about me, about the church, about what we've become. "William won't let you speak tomorrow," Sarah said. "You know that, right? The moment you try to say something, he'll shut you down. He'll have security remove you. He'll do whatever it takes to protect the image." "I know." Marcus felt a strange calm settling over him. "But I have to try. I have to at least try. Because if I don't, if I just walk away and pretend tonight never happened, then I'm no different than I was before. I'm still choosing comfort over truth. I'm still choosing clean floors over people." They reached Sarah's car, parked in the church lot. She'd driven in that afternoon for the cleaning shift, never imagining how the day would end. She unlocked the doors, but didn't get in immediately. "My husband used to say that faith without risk isn't really faith," she said quietly. "He said, if you're not willing to lose something for what you believe, then you don't really believe it." I never understood what he meant until tonight. "What happened to him?" Marcus asked. "You said he left, but you never said why." Sarah's expression grew distant. "He didn't leave by choice. He died. Heart attack, sudden, no warning. I lied earlier when I said he left me. I don't know why I lied. Maybe because it's easier to say he left than to say he died. Maybe because I'm still angry at him for leaving, even though it wasn't his fault. Maybe because I've been lying about so many things for so long that I don't know how to stop." Marcus felt a kinship with her in that moment, a recognition of shared pain and shared pretense. "I lied too. About my mother. I said I made peace with her death, but I never did. I just buried it under 25 years of cleaning and organizing and controlling everything I could control because I couldn't control that." "We're a mess," Sarah said, and she laughed, a sound that was half sob. "We're both a complete mess, and we're about to walk into a church full of people and tell them they need to change." The irony is almost funny. "Maybe that's the point," Marcus said. "Maybe that's exactly why we're the ones who have to do this, because we're not pretending to be perfect. We're not standing up there claiming to have it all figured out. We're just two broken people who finally saw the truth and couldn't unsee it." Sarah nodded slowly. "Tomorrow then. We do this tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Marcus agreed. They parted ways, Sarah driving home to her small apartment, Marcus walking to his house 6 blocks from the church. He'd lived in the same place for 15 years, a modest 2-bedroom that was always immaculately clean, always perfectly organized, always empty of anything that might create mess or chaos or unpredictability. Tonight, walking into that space, Marcus saw it differently. He saw the sterility, the lack of life, the way every surface was clear, every item in its place, every potential source of disorder eliminated. It looked like a showroom. It looked like no one actually lived there. It looked like his heart had looked for 25 years. Marcus sat on his couch, still in his work clothes that smelled like cleaning solution and sweat, and let himself feel everything he'd been avoiding. The grief over his mother, the loneliness of his carefully controlled life, the emptiness of faith that had become more about maintaining appearances than about actual relationship with God, the fear that had driven every decision for decades. He cried, really cried. For the first time since his mother's funeral, he cried for the boy who'd watched her die. He cried for the man who'd hidden behind mops and checklists. He cried for all the people he'd turned away over the years, all the times he'd chosen order over compassion, all the moments he'd missed because he was too busy keeping everything perfect. And somewhere in the middle of that crying, he prayed, not the formal, structured prayers he'd learned in church, but something raw and honest and desperate. "I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who that man was or what tomorrow is going to bring or how to be anything other than what I've been. But I know I can't keep living like this. I know I can't keep choosing safety over truth. So if you're there, if you're listening, if you care at all about a mess like me, help me. Help me be brave enough to do what's right. Help me see what I'm supposed to see. Help me be the person I was supposed to be before fear turned me into this." He fell asleep on the couch, still in his work clothes, and dreamed of white robes and grey-blue eyes and questions that had no easy answers. Marcus woke to his phone ringing. Sunlight streamed through his windows, and for a moment he was disoriented, couldn't remember why he was on the couch, why his body ached, why his eyes felt swollen. Then it all came rushing back. He grabbed his phone. Sarah's name flashed on the screen. Marcus. Her voice was tight with tension. Marcus, you need to see this. You need to come to the church right now. What's wrong? What happened? Just come, please. You need to see this. She hung up before he could ask more questions. Marcus stood, his body protesting, and looked at the time, 6:30 in the morning. Service didn't start until 10. What could possibly have happened? He drove to the church, his mind racing through possibilities. Had something been vandalized? Had the stranger come back? Had William decided to press charges? But nothing prepared him for what he found when he pulled into the parking lot. People, dozens of them, maybe 100, all standing outside the church, all staring at something on the front doors. Marcus parked and pushed through the crowd, his heart hammering. Sarah was there, standing near the entrance, her face pale. When she saw him, she just pointed. The glass doors were covered in handprints, dozens of them, hundreds maybe, all in that same dark substance, mud or dirt or something else. They covered every inch of glass, overlapping, creating a pattern that was somehow both chaotic and beautiful. And in the center, written in the same dark substance, were words, "Is it clean?" Marcus felt his knees go weak. When did this happen? Who did this? No one knows, Sarah said. The security cameras show nothing. No one came or went. But when the early service? A team arrived at 6. This was here, all of it, like it appeared overnight. It's vandalism, someone in the crowd said. Someone's making a statement. It's a message, someone else countered. Look at it. Really look at it. It's not random. It means something. Marcus stared at those words, at that question that had haunted him all night. Is it clean? The same question the stranger had asked. The same challenge that had started everything. Where's Pastor William? Marcus asked. Inside, Sarah said, with the elders. They've been in there for 20 minutes. I think they're trying to decide what to do. What to do? Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. What to do? The answer is obvious. We clean it off. We pretend it never happened. We maintain the image. That's what we always do, isn't it? Sarah looked at him sharply. Is that what you want? No. Marcus's voice was firm. No, that's not what I want. I want to leave it. I want everyone who comes this morning to see it. I want them to ask the same question we were asked. I want them to have to choose. They'll think we're crazy, Sarah said. They'll think we've lost our minds. Maybe we have, Marcus said, or maybe we've finally found them. The doors opened, and Pastor William emerged, flanked by David and Michael. His face was carefully neutral, but Marcus could see the tension in his jaw, the tightness around his eyes. Everyone, please. William raised his hands, his voice carrying that practiced authority. Please don't be alarmed. We've had an incident of vandalism overnight. We're handling it. We'll have it cleaned up before service begins. Everything will proceed as normal. Will it? Marcus heard himself say. The words came out louder than he'd intended, carrying across the crowd. Will everything proceed as normal? William's eyes locked on him. Marcus, I'm glad you're here. We need to talk. Inside, now. No. Marcus stepped forward, positioning himself where everyone could see him. No, I think we need to talk out here, in front of everyone. Because what happened last night, what led to this, everyone deserves to know. William's expression hardened. Marcus, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Let's discuss this privately. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 25 years, Marcus said. His heart was racing, but his voice was steady. And I'm done with private discussions. I'm done with protecting images and maintaining appearances and pretending everything is fine when it's not. The crowd had gone silent, everyone watching this confrontation unfold. Sarah moved to stand beside Marcus, a silent show of support. "Last night," Marcus continued, "a man came to this church. He was dirty, he was homeless, he smelled bad, he didn't fit our image of what someone should look like when they enter this building, and we turned him away. Pastor William, the elders, and we all chose to protect our clean floors over helping a human being in need." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. William's face flushed. "That's not what happened. You're oversimplifying." "Am I?" Marcus cut him off. "Then tell them what happened. Tell them exactly what happened. Tell them about the choice we made." William's jaw clenched. "We made a decision based on safety and order. We offered the man resources. We tried to help through proper channels. We didn't just turn him away." "We did exactly that," Sarah spoke up, her voice shaking but clear. "I was there. I saw it. We turned him away because he was dirty, because he didn't fit, because we cared more about our marble floors than about a person who needed help." "And he asked us a question," Marcus said, looking at the words written on the glass. "He asked if this church was really clean. Not the floors, not the surfaces, the church itself, the people, the hearts, the faith. He asked if we were really clean, and we proved we weren't by choosing comfort over compassion." "This is ridiculous," Michael Bradford stepped forward. "You're making a spectacle based on one incident, one interaction with one person. You're trying to make us all feel guilty because we have standards, because we maintain order, because we're responsible stewards of what we've been given." "Standards?" Marcus repeated. "Is that what we're calling it? Standards that exclude people who don't look right? Standards that value buildings over people? Standards that make us feel righteous while we ignore the suffering right outside our doors?" "We don't ignore suffering," David Torres said. "We run programs, we donate money, we support missions. We do more for the community than most churches our size." "Do we?" Marcus challenged. "Or do we write checks and organize programs so we can feel good about ourselves without actually having to get our hands dirty, without actually having to touch the broken people, without actually having to sacrifice our comfort?" "Enough!" William's voice cracked like a whip. "Marcus, you're out of line. You're causing division. You're disrupting the peace of this congregation. I'm asking you one more time to stop this and come inside so we can discuss this rationally." "No." Marcus felt something solidify inside him, something that felt like courage or maybe just desperation. "No, I won't stop. Because that man last night, whoever he was, he showed me something I'd been blind to for 25 years. He showed me that I'd been using order and cleanliness and control as a way to avoid actually living, as a way to avoid actually loving, as a way to avoid the mess and chaos and risk that real faith requires." He turned to address the crowd directly. "I've been head of facilities here for over 2 decades. I've spent thousands of hours making this building perfect, making sure every surface shines, making sure everything is in its place, making sure nothing disrupts the experience. And last night I realized that I've been worshipping the wrong thing. I've been worshipping order instead of God. I've been worshipping comfort instead of truth. I've been worshipping the building instead of the people it's supposed to serve. This is heresy," Michael said. "You're attacking the church. You're attacking everything we've built." "I'm attacking what we've become," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference. This church used to be different. It used to be a place where broken people could come and find acceptance, where mess was okay because we understood that life is messy, where the focus was on people, not programs, where love mattered more than appearances. What happened to that church? When did we trade it for marble floors and LED lights and a brand that looks good on social media?" Sarah stepped forward. I've been here longer than almost anyone. I remember when this was just a warehouse with folding chairs. I remember when Pastor William was just a young minister who cared more about people than about building an empire. I remember when we used to leave the doors unlocked because we wanted anyone to be able to come in anytime for any reason. I remember when we measured success by changed lives, not by attendance numbers or budget growth. She looked at William, and there were tears in her eyes. What happened to you? What happened to the man who used to sit with me in the parking lot when my husband died, who prayed with me and cried with me and helped me believe I could survive? What happened to the pastor who used to know everyone's name, who used to visit people in hospitals, who used to care more about souls than about buildings? William's face had gone from red to pale. That's not fair, Sarah. You don't understand the pressures, the responsibilities, the complexity of running a church this size. Then maybe it shouldn't be this size, Sarah said quietly. Maybe we grew too big. Maybe we lost something essential in the pursuit of growth. Maybe we need to get smaller so we can get real again. The crowd was completely silent now. Everyone transfixed by this confrontation, by these truths being spoken aloud that many had probably felt but never voiced. You're both fired, William said flatly. Effective immediately. You're no longer welcome on this property. You need to leave. Now. No. The voice came from the crowd, and Marcus turned to see an older man stepping forward. He recognized him as Robert Chen, one of the founding members of the church, someone who'd been there from the very beginning. No, William, they're not leaving, and you're not firing them, not without a congregational vote. That's in our bylaws, remember? The ones we wrote when this church started? The ones that say the congregation has final say over major decisions? William's expression shifted to something like panic. Robert, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time, Robert interrupted, because Marcus and Sarah are saying things that need to be said. Things I've been thinking for years but didn't have the courage to voice. We have lost our way. We have become something we were never supposed to be. And maybe it took a dirty stranger and a night of vandalism to show us that. The vandalism is the problem, Michael insisted. Someone defaced our property. Someone is trying to attack us. We should be calling the police, not having a theological debate in the parking lot. Is it an attack? Another voice called out. Marcus saw it was Jennifer Walsh, a single mother who'd been attending for about 5 years. Or is it a wake-up call? Because I've been coming here for years, and I've never felt like I really belonged. I've always felt like I had to dress right, act right, say the right things. Like I was being judged every time I walked through those doors. And maybe that's on me, but maybe it's also on us. Maybe we've created a culture where appearance matters more than authenticity. I've felt that too, someone else said. And then another voice, and another. People sharing their experiences, their doubts, their frustrations with what the church had become. William looked like he was watching his empire crumble. This is chaos. This is exactly what I was trying to prevent. This is what happens when you let emotion override reason, when you let sentiment override structure. Or maybe this is what happens when you finally tell the truth, Marcus said. Maybe this is what happens when you stop pretending everything is fine and admit that we've lost our way. Maybe this is what repentance actually looks like. Repentance, William's voice rose. You're going to lecture me about repentance? You, who just quit yesterday, who abandoned your responsibilities, who's now standing here trying to tear down everything we've built? I'm not trying to tear it down, Marcus said. I'm trying to save it. I'm trying to save us from becoming so focused on the building that we forget about the people, so focused on the image that we forget about the reality, so focused on looking clean that we forget about actually being clean. He pointed to the words on the glass. That's the question we need to answer. Not just clean it off and pretend it was never asked. Actually answer it. Is this church really clean? Are our hearts clean? Are our motives clean? Are our priorities clean? Because I can tell you right now, mine weren't. Mine were filthy. I was using this church, using my role here, using the order and structure as a way to avoid dealing with my own brokenness. And I think I'm not the only one. The silence that followed was heavy with conviction. Marcus could see it on faces throughout the crowd, that recognition, that uncomfortable awareness of their own compromises and pretenses. "So what do you want?" William asked, and his voice had lost its authority. He just sounded tired. "What do you want from me? From us? What's the end game here?" "I want us to be honest," Marcus said. "I want us to admit that we've lost our way. I want us to stop pretending that success is measured in attendance numbers and budget growth. I want us to remember that we're supposed to be a hospital for sinners, not a museum for saints. I want us to leave those handprints on the doors, at least for today, so that everyone who comes has to see them, has to ask themselves the same question. Is this church really clean?" "And then what?" William asked. "After today, after everyone's asked themselves the question, what then?" "Then we change," Sarah said. "We change how we do things. We change our priorities. We change our focus. We become the church we were supposed to be all along." "That's easy to say," David said. "But change is complicated. We have budgets, we have commitments, we have staff to pay and bills to cover and programs to maintain. You can't just tear it all down and start over." "Maybe not," Marcus agreed. "But we can start making different choices. We can start valuing people over programs. We can start measuring success by changed lives instead of by numbers. We can start being willing to get messy, to get uncomfortable, to get our hands dirty, actually helping people instead of just writing checks. And we can start by leaving those handprints up," Robert said. "Not just for today, for as long as it takes for us to really answer the question. For as long as it takes for us to become the kind of church where someone like that stranger would be welcomed, not turned away." William looked at the doors, at the hundreds of handprints, at the question written in the center. Marcus watched the internal struggle play out on his face, watched him wrestle with pride and fear and the weight of everything he'd built. "If we do this," William finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, "if we leave them up, if we admit we were wrong, we'll lose people. We'll lose donors. We'll lose our reputation. Everything I've spent 20 years building could fall apart." "Yes," Marcus said gently, "it could, but maybe what falls apart needs to fall apart. Maybe we need to lose the wrong things so we can find the right things again." William closed his eyes. Marcus saw his lips moving, realized he was praying, and felt a surge of hope. Maybe there was still something redeemable here. Maybe the man Sarah remembered, the young pastor who'd cared more about people than about empires, was still in there somewhere. When William opened his eyes, they were wet with tears. "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough to watch everything fall apart." "You're not alone," Sarah said, moving toward him. "That's the point. You're not alone. We're all in this together. We all lost our way. We all need to find it again, but we can do it together." William looked at her, at Marcus, at Robert, at the crowd of people who'd gathered to witness this moment. "I'm sorry," he said, and his voice broke. "I'm so sorry. You're right. You're all right. I lost sight of what mattered. I got caught up in the growth, in the success, in building something impressive. And I forgot that impressive doesn't matter if it's not authentic, if it's not real, if it's not actually helping people encounter God." He turned to face the congregation. "Last night, we turned away someone who needed help. We chose our clean building over a human being, and that was wrong. I was wrong. I made a choice that contradicted everything I claim to believe, everything I preach about, everything this church is supposed to stand for. And I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry." The tears were flowing freely now, and Marcus felt his own eyes burning. This was what repentance looked like, Not just words, but genuine brokenness, genuine recognition of failure. "I don't know how to fix this," William continued. "I don't know how to undo 20 years of wrong priorities, but I want to try. I want to learn. I want to become the kind of leader, the kind of pastor, the kind of person who would never turn away someone in need, even if it means losing everything I've built, even if it means starting over, even if it means getting uncomfortable and messy and real." He looked at the handprints on the doors. "We'll leave them up. We'll leave them up until we can honestly answer that question, until we can look at ourselves and say, yes, we're clean. Not our building, not our programs, not our image, but our hearts, our motives, our love, until we're actually clean where it matters." The crowd erupted. Some people were crying. Some were clapping, some were praying, some were arguing, clearly uncomfortable with this direction, clearly preferring the old way. But something had shifted, something fundamental had changed. Marcus felt Sarah's hand slip into his, felt her squeeze tight. They'd done it. They'd spoken the truth. They'd risked everything, and somehow, impossibly, it had worked. But even as relief washed through him, Marcus knew this was just the beginning. The real work was ahead. The real change would take time, would take effort, would take constant vigilance against sliding back into old patterns. "Marcus," William approached him, his face still wet with tears. "I'm sorry for last night, for firing you, for not listening, for all of it. Will you stay? Will you help us figure out how to do this differently?" Marcus looked at this man, who'd been his pastor for over 2 decades, who'd just shown more vulnerability and courage than Marcus had ever seen from him, and felt something like forgiveness bloom in his chest. "Yes," Marcus said. "Yes, I'll stay. But things have to be different, really different. Not just words, actual change." "I know," William said. "I know, and I'm ready. I'm finally ready." The service that morning was unlike any service First Light Community Church had ever held. People filed past the handprints, past the question, and took their seats in a sanctuary that felt different somehow, charged with possibility and tension and hope. William stood at the pulpit, but he didn't preach his prepared sermon. Instead, he told the truth. He told them about the stranger, about the choice that was made, about the question that was asked, about the conviction that followed, about the need for change. And he invited them to be part of that change, to examine their own hearts, to ask themselves the same question, to choose whether they wanted to be part of a church that valued appearance over authenticity, comfort over compassion, buildings over people. Some people walked out. Marcus watched them go, watched them choose the old way, the comfortable way, the way that didn't require change or discomfort or risk. It hurt to see them leave, but he understood. Not everyone was ready. Not everyone wanted to do the hard work of transformation. But most people stayed. Most people leaned in. Most people chose to be part of something real. Even if it was messy, even if it was uncomfortable, even if it meant losing the polish and perfection they'd grown accustomed to. After the service, Marcus stood outside, looking at the handprints on the glass. Sarah joined him, and together they stared at that question. "Do you think he'll come back?" Sarah asked. "The stranger?" "I don't know," Marcus said. "But I think that's not really the point. The point is what he showed us, what he revealed. The question he asked that we have to keep asking ourselves. Is it clean?" Sarah read the words aloud. "I don't think we can answer that yet. I don't think we're there yet." "No," Marcus agreed, "but maybe we're on the way. Maybe that's enough for now. Being on the way." They stood there in silence, two people who'd spent their lives maintaining surfaces, now committed to the much harder work of transforming hearts. The work of becoming actually clean, not just appearing clean. The work of building a church that valued people over programs, authenticity over image, love over law. It would take time. It would take effort. It would take constant vigilance, but for the first time in 25 years, Marcus felt like he was doing something that actually mattered, something that actually aligned with what he claimed to believe. The handprints stayed on the doors for 3 months. Every Sunday, people would file past them, would read that question, would be reminded of what they were trying to become. Some visitors were confused, some were put off, but many were intrigued, were drawn in by the honesty, by the admission of failure, by the commitment to change. Slowly, things began to shift. The budget was restructured to prioritize people over buildings. Programs were evaluated based on actual impact rather than attendance numbers. The doors were left unlocked during the day, and people were encouraged to come in any time, for any reason, regardless of how they looked or smelled or fit the image. Marcus's role changed. He was no longer just maintaining surfaces. He was helping create systems that served people. He was training volunteers to see past appearances to actual needs. He was learning to value mess over order, authenticity over perfection, relationship over control. Sarah started a ministry for people experiencing homelessness, partnering with local shelters and organizations, bringing people into the church building for meals and showers and conversation. The marble floors got dirty, the chairs got stained. The perfect order Marcus had spent years maintaining was disrupted, and it was beautiful. William changed too. He stepped back from the speaking tours and the social media presence and the empire building. He started spending more time with individuals, learning their names, hearing their stories, being present in their pain. He started preaching shorter sermons that were more honest, more vulnerable, more real. Not everyone was happy with the changes. The church lost about 30% of its attendance in those first few months. Several major donors left, taking their money with them. The budget had to be cut dramatically. Staff positions were eliminated, programs were cancelled, but something else grew in place of what was lost. Something harder to measure, but infinitely more valuable. Community, authenticity, love. The kind of faith that wasn't afraid to get dirty, that wasn't afraid to be uncomfortable, that wasn't afraid to sacrifice comfort for the sake of actually helping people. 3 months after, that night, Marcus and Sarah stood outside the church at dawn. They'd come early, before anyone else arrived, to finally clean the handprints off the glass. It was time. Not because they'd achieved perfection, but because they'd learned the lesson. Because they'd internalized the question, because they no longer needed the external reminder. Marcus filled a bucket with warm water and soap. Sarah brought clean cloths. Together, they began to wipe away the handprints, slowly, carefully, with reverence for what they represented. As the glass cleared, as the question disappeared, Marcus felt both loss and hope. Loss for the reminder, hope for what they'd become. "Do you think we can answer it now?" Sarah asked as they worked. The question, can we say we're clean? Marcus thought about it. Thought about the changes they'd made, the growth they'd experienced, the ways they'd learned to see differently. "I think we're cleaner," he said finally. "I think we're on the way. But I don't think we ever get to say we've arrived. I think it's a question we have to keep asking, keep examining, keep letting challenge us." Sarah nodded. "That feels right. That feels honest." They finished cleaning just as the sun rose fully, light streaming through the now clear glass, illuminating the entrance hall. The marble floors were no longer perfect. There were scuff marks and stains that wouldn't come out. But somehow that felt right too. Felt honest. Felt real. People began arriving for the early service. They noticed immediately that the handprints were gone, and Marcus saw mixed reactions. Some relief, some disappointment, some curiosity about what it meant. William addressed it during the service. "The handprints are gone," he said, "not because we've achieved perfection, but because we've learned what they were meant to teach us. The question remains, even if the words are no longer visible. Is this church really clean? It's a question we'll keep asking ourselves, keep examining, keep letting shape how we operate and what we prioritize and who we choose to be. He paused, looking out at the congregation that was smaller but somehow more present, more engaged, more real than it had been before. We're not the same church we were 3 months ago. We've lost some things. We've gained others. We're messier. We're less polished. We're more honest. And I believe we're closer to what we're supposed to be. Closer to the kind of community that actually reflects the heart of God. After the service, Marcus was locking up the supply closet when he heard someone behind him. He turned to find a young woman standing there, maybe mid-20s, with worn clothes and tired eyes. "Excuse me," she said hesitantly. "I heard about this church, about what happened, about the changes. I was wondering if maybe I could come in sometime. I don't have anywhere else to go, and I thought maybe..." She trailed off, looking uncertain, looking like she expected to be turned away. Marcus felt his throat tighten. This was it. This was the moment. The test of whether they'd actually changed or just talked about changing. "Of course," he said, and his voice was warm, genuine. "Of course you can come in, anytime. You're always welcome here. Always." The relief on her face was palpable. "Really? Even though I'm not exactly..." She gestured to her clothes, her appearance. "Especially because of that," Marcus said. "Come on, let me show you around. Let me introduce you to some people. Let me help you find what you need." As he walked with her into the building, past the now clean glass doors, past the marble floors that were no longer perfect, past the spaces that had been transformed from showpieces into actual places of refuge, Marcus felt something settle in his chest. This was what clean actually looked like. Not spotless surfaces, but open doors. Not perfect order, but genuine welcome. Not maintained appearances, but transformed hearts. They'd answered the question, not with words, but with action. Not with claims, but with choices. Not with perfection, but with progress. The church was clean, not because the floors were spotless, but because the hearts were changing. Not because everything looked right, but because they were finally doing right. Not because they'd arrived, but because they were on the way. And that, Marcus realized, was exactly what the stranger had been trying to show them all along. That cleanliness isn't about surfaces. It's about souls. It's about choosing love over law, people over property, compassion over comfort. It's about being willing to get dirty in the service of something greater than yourself. Marcus introduced the young woman to Sarah, who immediately wrapped her in a hug and started making plans to help her find resources, find stability, find hope. He watched them talk, watched Sarah's face light up with purpose, watched the young woman's shoulders relax as she realized she'd found a place where she belonged. This was the church they were becoming. This was the answer to the question. This was what clean really meant. And somewhere, Marcus liked to imagine a man in a white robe was smiling. This story, while fictional, reflects a truth we all face. How easily we prioritize appearances over authenticity, comfort over compassion, and clean spaces over messy grace. It was created not to deceive, but to make us reflect on the moments when we've chosen what looks right over what is right, when we've valued our image more than someone's dignity. When was the last time you turned someone away because they didn't fit your expectations? What would you have done if you were Marcus, standing at that door, choosing between a clean floor and a human being? Today, look for someone who doesn't fit, someone who makes you uncomfortable, someone who disrupts your order, and choose them. Choose to see past the surface to the soul. Choose to value their presence over your comfort. You might not be entertaining angels, but you'll be practicing the kind of love that actually transforms the world. Because the question isn't whether our buildings are clean, but whether our hearts are. This is a story from Hidden Grace.